Great. I'd like to start by thanking Katie and Angela for putting this on. It's an honor to be here. The starting point for my talk today is the idea, a very simple idea, that emotions are often very helpful, but they can be a problem when they're of the wrong intensity or type for a particular situation. And as a clinical psychologist, I'm interested in emotion problems because of the crucial role they play in psychopathology ranging from ADHD to depression, but also because of the role they play in everyday life. Take, for example, a family trip to family relatives, my wife's family relatives in Ireland, schlepping from distant uncle to distant aunt across the countryside. My young kids got more and more annoying and poking each other in the ribs, making faces, falling under the table. I could feel myself starting to get angry, even though I knew that that anger at my kids was going to be totally unhelpful. When you think about what was going on for me in that circumstance, in cartoon form, you could imagine it as some feature of the world triggering my anger, which I obviously perceived my kids misbehaving. That then led me to value the behavior that I saw negatively, where valuation for these purposes is very simple. I had a standard, something I hoped they would do. They clearly weren't doing it as they wriggled around under the table. Some comparator made sense of that discrepancy and then launched a set of actions which included physiological, behavioral, and experiential changes, which together we call anger. And those anger responses then had, in this case, undesirable impact on the already tense situation. Now, if we want to change emotions, whether of the everyday sort or in the context of psychopathology, I think it's useful to start by thinking about how emotions are generated and then using that to make sense of where one might intervene to change emotions or any other motivated behavior. And this is the idea, the process model of emotion regulation. So using the same scenario I described a moment ago, we could take the world that I was in at that point and imagine changing some feature of the world. I could ask the kids if they wanted to go outside and play, situation selection. Or in the situation itself, I could try to modify the situation, for example, by taking out a board game. I could do something a little bit more internal by redirecting my own attention to the logistics of the next day. I could try to modify the valuation step by reminding myself how tired and jet lagged the kids were, or I could just bite my lip and try not to show my anger. In thinking about emotion generation and emotion regulation, I think it's useful to remember that each of these is a form of goal-directed behavior, at the heart of which is what may be called a valuation system, by which I just mean something that takes as input relevant features of the world, does some sort of negative or positive valuation, and issues action tendencies. Now, these valuation systems vary very greatly in terms of preferred inputs, preferred outputs, temporal dynamics, openness to adjustment via experience, and so forth. But if we use this valuation system perspective, we're reminded that any motivated behavior is the result of one or more of these valuation systems working in concert. And if we strip away all of the particularity of any given valuation system, we can draw out something like this. Again, the idea, a system sensitive to certain features of the world, which when taken on board and valued then lead to action implications. And if we use this valuation perspective, we can of course draw emotions as a little valuation system, the first level. And we then from this perspective can see that something like emotion regulation is simply what's meant when a second level valuation system takes this as its object in the world, so that we have a second level valuation which takes as the relevant feature of the world, not angry kids or whatever, but the anger that's being generated inside me, which when perceived and valued then issues actions that are designed to modify the first level valuation. And this of course is a simple case. A more complex case is where I'm, for example, not just down-regulating my anger, but actually also upregulating compassion for the kids, a case in which a second level valuation interacts with not one, but actually two first level valuation systems. And in talking with Angela over the past number of years, it's occurred to both of us that this perspective, this valuation system perspective in thinking about motivated behavior, is much more general than I'd initially conceived of it in the context of emotion generation and emotion regulation. And Angela, in her companion talk, will take it from here. So no questions.
Yeah,
Rotate
no
straight
questions,
to you.
No thoughts, no comment. Well, you can have thoughts.